Hey guys, welcome to KPReacts, your home of internet reactions. Now, I am a tall Donny. I am 6'2". I'm probably taller than the average here in the UK. And in Asians, we're not really that tall, so I really stick out like a sore thumb. But today, we are learning about the world's tallest tribe. It's a tribe somewhere in Africa. We'll find out in the video, but it's basically just full of lots and lots of really tall people. So let's find out why that is.
Deep in the deserts of South Sudan lives the world's tallest tribe. These enormous people have produced...
Jesus, wait, hold on. That Donny's trousers, look at that. That is some 3/4 length shorts. Do you guys remember those 3/4 length shorts? Here in the UK, I feel like they were huge when I was like 12 or 13. And they just looked terrible. Like the ones where they were trousers, but you could like zip off a bit. Jesus. Bad fashion sense all round, man.
Produced several NBA players, including Manute Bol, the tallest player in NBA history. But what else do we know about this mysterious tribe? Today, we're learning about the Dinka tribe, the tallest people in the world.
The Dinka tribe?
The Dinka people have lived along the banks of the Nile River for millennia.
They're in
Sudan. To the region, and their presence in the area far predates modern country designations, but they inhabit modern-day Sudan, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. Ancient pictographs of cattle in Egypt give reason to associate the Dinka with the introduction of domesticated cattle south of the Sahara. Around 3000 BC, herders who also fished and tilled settled in the largest swamp area in the world, the area of southern Sudan where the floodplain of the Nile empties. Many of their ancient traditions are
rare to find in Africa.
Still in place. The Dinka defended their area against the Ottoman Turks in the mid-1800s and rejected attempts of slave merchants.
Jesus, these Donnies are warriors. Wow, look at that guy's face. I'm not messing with him, you know, I'm telling you. I'm not messing with him.
Otherwise, they have lived in seclusion. The Dinka have an average height of 6 feet and 1 inch. Compare this to the average height of 5 foot 7 inches globally.
Jeez, 5'7" is the average for a man. Flipping hell, there must be some places in the world that are really letting the team down. 5'7" is tiny.
Massive tribe towers all other lives on Earth, so it's no surprise that many of them excel in basketball. NBA players produced by the tribe include Bol Bol, Thonmaker, Luol Deng, Ata Majok, and Mariel Shayok. Most of these players have fascinating lives, leaving a war-torn country for a brand new land to compete at the highest level of athletics. Manute Bol tore through his NBA career with the Washington Bullets, the Golden State Warriors, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the...
This guy's like the old school Taco Fall. For those of you guys are not maybe keeping up with the NBA, Taco Fall plays for the Celtics, I believe, and he is just huge. Like basketball players are tall anyway, but this guy absolutely towers above all of them. It's unbelievable. Watching it and just seeing it in like live is incredible. Absolutely mad.
Miami Heat. He stood 7 feet 7 inches tall. His quick reflex.
Look where his shorts come up to. His shorts are like boxers. And the thing is, these are like proper shorts that are supposed to come down to your knees. That's mad. Just look how long his leg. That's mad.
An incredible.
That is crazy.
Made him a formidable shot blocker. In 624 games, he made 2,086 blocks for an average of 3.30.
Right, it is so funny. He barely jumps. You see some player like running up, proper layup with like 3 steps and a jump, and he just stands there and just like denied. Oh man.
The second best in NBA history.
Jesus.
Bol, a Dinka from southern Sudan, tended his family's cattle and at age 15 began playing basketball. He arrived in the US in 1982 with no formal education or knowledge of the English language. Within 3 years, however, he had studied English at the Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, played a year of college ball at the University of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and been drafted by the Bullets. After retiring in 1995, Bol campaigned for peace in war-torn Sudan, where he maintained a part-time home and funded the construction of new schools. Bol was notable for his efforts to promote human rights in his native Sudan and aid for Sudanese refugees. But he was not unique in this sense. Most prominent members of the Dinka tribe play simultaneous roles as athletes and activists, attempting to advocate for their oppressed region. He succeeded in raising awareness for the tribe, but violence is still prevalent throughout the region. No one knows the origin of the word Dinka, and in fact, it's a word that colonists applied to these indigenous people. They call themselves either Muanjang or Jang. Many of these tribal members do not acknowledge the state of Sudan and prefer to pledge allegiance to their tribe. There are 20 different tribes among the Dinka, and they do not always get along. The Dinka people were until recently blissfully unaware of the presence of capitalism. In fact, words like profit, market,
Wow. Can you imagine that? Living in a world that is blissfully ignorant of capitalism. That.
And trade were only
How would
added
that
to
even
their
work?
vocabulary by colonists. While outsiders are quick to call the Dinka primitive, their lifestyle and traditions are more focused on communal living and harmony with their natural surroundings. Many experts believe that Indigenous people will be instrumental in helping the world face issues like climate change and increasing natural disasters. Shared economic resources, similarities in language and cultural norms, and myths of genealogical connection between all the different sections of Dinka create a sense of collective identity. Cattle are of supreme importance to the Dinka, both symbolically and practically. These animals form the basis of Dinka livelihood, religion, and social structure. The importance
Wow.
of cattle in the Dinka economy has had great influence in the politics of contact between the Dinka and
Vegans, what you got to say about that? You can't take... If these guys didn't have meat and cattle, can you imagine if there was a vegan Dinka? Hey, they would get walked out of that tribe
other pastoral
so
peoples
quick.
neighbouring them. This contact was initially based on exchange, but has gradually developed into hostility as Dinka's herding neighbours started to desire access to Dinka cattle and the grazing plains of their life. There are more than 400 words in the Dinka vocabulary relating to cattle. Traditionally, when people were
Wow.
low on grain,
400 words for one thing. Is there any English word that has anything close to that? I don't think so. I don't
they
think we
collected
anything like
wild
that.
grain and nuts or went fishing. With the advent of the modern market, grain became available in the shops owned by Arab traders. It was, however, procurable with cash, which the Dinka did not have and could only obtain by the sale of cattle. Over time, the Dinka themselves slowly got into trading. Many Dinka sell several cows in order to procure salt, cloth, and medicine from the city and exchange them for grain in the country, only to sell the grain back to the other Dinka for more cattle during a lean season.
Wow.
This is added to the usual Dinka mechanisms of cattle circulation and redistribution through marriages. Dinka boys often undergo a scarification process, marking their metamorphosis from a boy to a man. Those who scream or wince during the
Ow! That just looks so painful.
scarring are considered to be weak. The men then take up the name of their favourite cattle or its attributes. They engage in traditional dances and songs during
You take the name of your cattle. Wow. That's an interesting one. I guess their cattle are probably called really
funerals,
interesting names.
marriages, healing ceremonies, wrestling matches, and celebration of the tribe's ancestors, where they create the music with drums. Initially, the funeral of their spiritual leaders was celebrated on a grand scale, with the latter buried alive. When he was on the verge
What?
of dying, the other tribal members would place him on the grave and dance until he breathed his last. Though this ritual was banned by the British colonialists, it is still practiced at present in fewer numbers. Polygamy used to be common among the Dinka, but this has gone out of fashion with younger generations. Division of labour among the Dinka is not very different from that of many other East African people groups. In general, women work around the homestead, managing the household, farming and preparing food. Men's labour takes them farther away from home, since much of it involves grazing cattle. Women, in addition to sharing food production with men, are responsible for childcare, preparing and serving the family meals, cleaning the homestead and milking the cows. They also engaged in crafting beaded jewellery aside from decorative items made of bones, tusks and horns of dead animals. They use animal hides to make belts, drum skins, ropes and clothes. Originally, they resided in round mud huts with conical
We haven't learned anything about why they're tall just yet. We've just learned that they like cattle.
thatched roofs. The two-storey huts had a living area on the ground floor, with granaries above it for storing crops like millet, groundnuts and sorghum. Nudity is also extremely common among the Dinka. Outsiders often project their societal norms onto the Dinka, but in the extremely hot climate, they are comfortable in the nude and they are non-self-conscious about their bodies. The Dinka elders teach their children.
You know what's mad? You know, like in the Western world, there's so much about body positivity and we spend so much time on Instagram and everything talking about body positivity. These guys live body positivity. Don't care. They're just all walking around, letting it all hang out, you know. That's the way it's got to
As
be.
a result, there was no formal education for the Dinka people until the 1930s. In the subsequent years, they have attempted to implement an education system so that Dinka can communicate in an increasingly globalised world. Because much of Dinka land is flat and susceptible to flooding,
Did he call it Dinkaland? Is that what that's a sick name. I like that name. Dinkaland. I like it.
they tend to pack their villages into the few elevated areas, and therefore there is no particular order to the settlements. Roads that could attract people to build their settlements in relation to traffic are almost non-existent in Dinkaland. The majority of these people are monotheists, worshipping a single deity, Nialik, whom they regard as the supreme god.
It's the snake god. It's Snape. It's Snape. Can they speak? Can they speak to the snakes, though? Are they parcel tongue? That is what we want to know. That's what we all want to know. Are they parcel tongue?
8% of them practice Christianity as a result of conversion by British missionaries in the 1800s.
Just deep that, right? Most of them follow this god that many of us probably haven't heard of, but is very sacred to them. But through British colonialism, 8% of the Dinka tribe are Christians. Like, don't ever underestimate how much influence the British colony had all over the world. It's absolutely incredible, and you see bits of it all around the world in the most far-flung places of the world, man. The British colony, like, literally shaped the world as it is today. It's incredible.
The elevated dirt roads that were built during the colonial times and which have historically connected the villages to the towns have now given way to disrepair due to the war. Soil erosion has been a major cause of frequent movement of villages, and one often finds many deserted villages that have been taken over by bush. Over the last 2 decades, movement of villages has also been prompted by war and population displacement. A large number of Dinka currently live in refugee camps in...
You know, the one thing that confuses me, they're talking about wars and stuff. The thing that confuses me, though, is like, these guys struggle to, obviously, you know, to nourish themselves with water, food, etc. But everyone always has guns. That's, you know, that baffles me sometimes. It just baffles me sometimes. Like, how is that happening?
In the neighbouring countries. According to the 2008 Sudanese census, Dinka number around 4.5 million people, making up about 18% of the country's population and South Sudan's biggest ethnic group. But they are at the centre of a sectarian conflict that took the whole world by surprise. One of the most haunting aspects of the ongoing conflict was the phenomena of the Lost Boys. Tens of thousands of young men displaced by warfare, journeying by foot across the country to refugee camps, from which many were taken to America and resettled by aid organisations. Wow. The phenomenon has been the subject of a number of films and books. God Grew Tired of Us, which follows 3 Sudanese boys taken to America, won the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival in 2006. John Buldow, one of the boys featured, also wrote a memoir of the same name and has since started the John Dow Foundation to improve healthcare in South Sudan. Unlike the heavily Arabized Islamic population of northern Sudan, the indigenous African population in the south of the country has maintained animist religious beliefs that were incorporated into the Christianity established by 19th century missionaries. The religious and cultural differences between the north and south of the country, exacerbated by tribal disputes and politics, led to conflicts that persisted and intensified throughout the 20th century, and which eventually...
You do not want to get into fights with these Donnies. These guys do not understand. Like,
led to total
they would whip your ass so quick.
The situation has created one of the most war-torn nations in the world, with hostilities continuing almost uninterrupted ever since. In July 2011, South Sudan seceded after a referendum, although the infrastructure and economy will take years to recover. In both the Islamic North...
Was their political leader just wearing a cowboy hat?
Seceded after a referendum, although the infrastructure and...
How can you trust a Donnie that wears a cowboy hat?
The economy will take years to recover. In both the Islamic North and the Christian South, internal strife persists. The civil war continues to rage on, and thousands have been killed in recent years. World-famous actor George Clooney has been active in South Sudan since 2011 and recently wrote an article explaining how the United States could help the people in this region. He called for action against multinationals, Western tycoons and brokers who have profited from South Sudan's violent instability, warning policymakers that if you don't care what happens in South Sudan, its problems will end up on your doorstep. Global warming is making the desert larger, violence is moving people off the land, and they are moving by the millions, the outspoken activist told CNN. You care not just because it is the right thing to do, which it is, but because at one point or another, it's something we will begin dealing with. One case study from Clooney's organisation alleges that the country's largest multinational petroleum consortium, Dar Petroleum Operating Company, funded militias in the oil-producing regions of South Sudan.
That's the one thing that maybe we don't necessarily in the Western world appreciate, the link between particularly a lot of these oil and gas companies and these type of militia or militant groups are actually probably a lot closer than maybe we anticipate, and we don't necessarily see that link because of all of the kind of laws and regulations we have in these countries that stop companies and powerful companies working with local groups. But those don't exist in these types of places around the world, and so you see this happen a lot in many of these types of countries.
Corporation and Malaysian state-owned Petronas. Clooney encourages people to boycott these companies and use sanctions to curb their influence in the region. He stresses that many individuals are unwittingly supporting these corporations through mutual funds which mask specific investments. He encourages the public to look into their investments and make sure they match with their values. If you are sympathetic to the plight of the Dinka people or the issues in South Sudan, organisations like Water for South Sudan, Sudan Relief Fund and the Norwegian Refugee Council are all working on the ground to improve the quality of life for these people.
Wow. Okay, so that didn't tell us anything about why they're tall, but it basically just told us that they're a tribe that has faced a lot of hardship and are still facing a lot of hardship, and they've got many problems, many of which that I'm sure are just not exclusive to these guys. They apply to all of the tribes and many of the tribes across the world, not even just in Africa. But very interesting, really interesting to hear about that basketball player. Definitely, like I never heard of that guy before. I've obviously had a Taco Fall more recently, but that guy was huge. It's unbelievable. But that's it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you've been enjoying these reaction videos, and I'll see you next time.